Oaks Park. Before COVID, we had a tradition at our school where on the 8th graders' last day, the students and staff would go to a place called Oaks Park. And we would eat pizza, ride their lone roller coaster, drive the go-karts, play some mini golf, and spin on the tilt-a-whirl for hours. The night before my first Oaks Park trip, I decided to celebrate the end of the school year at a bar with some pints and tequila shots, thinking, I don't have to actually teach tomorrow. I can go hungover. How hard can it be? On this day, the PTA usually provides lunch, and everyone gathers at a pavilion and quickly grubs so they can scurry back to the line for the Screaming Eagle or Ferris wheel. I opted to lay in this designated area for the entire trip because, contrary to the belief I had the night before, simply walking was proving to be difficult. During lunch, while watching kids dunk soggy hot dogs in the Coca-Cola-filled paper food boats, I made the following comment to one of my friends/co-workers. Wouldn't it be funny if we had like a Sandlot moment and a bunch of kids puked? She was like, why would you say that? And then followed up with, also, that's a Stand By Me moment. This is where our tale truly begins, and I'm sure you can guess where it's going. The sun-soaked students with queasy bellies and teary eyes gathered onto the bus back to the building around 3 or 3:30, and I followed behind, still greatly feeling the effects from my decision the previous evening. Each 8th grade teacher had their own bus to chaperone, making this the first instance of my professional career where I had an almost out-of-body experience on some, holy shit, you're the responsible grown-up right now. Whose dumb idea was it to put you in charge? You can't even handle your own life, let alone the lives of 50 others. As we merged onto Highway 224 and headed towards summer vacation, one of the sweetest, quietest, kindest girls I had that year interrupted my imposter syndrome inner monologue by tapping me on the shoulder and whispering, Mr. Dix, I think I'm going to puke. For real? Yes, for real. What do I do? I sprang into action, wobbling through the aisle up towards the driver with such a clear plan I almost felt like a certified adult. I figured the bus driver would have a garbage can, an extra garbage bag, or even a specific barf container. It's a middle school bus. They gotta have something, right? Hey there, I said. I've got a girl who needs to puke. Do you have anything she can throw up into? No, sorry, son, I got nothing for her, the bus driver replied, never once taking her eyes off of the road in front of us. Dumbfounded, I asked, you don't have anything? Can we at least pull over then so she can puke on the side of the road? The bus driver responded by saying, it's the motion that's making her sick. Even if we pull over, once we get going again, she'll still need to puke. What should I tell her to do then? Tell her to throw up out the window. Were I an experienced educator, I would have fought back against this god-awful, abhorrent suggestion and demanded we pull over. Are you kidding me? What kind of idiot tells a sick kid that if they need to vomit, they should lower the bus window and ralph onto passing traffic as we drive on a county highway? Well, I was that idiot, and seeing as the bus driver was going to keep rolling despite what foul odors or chunky liquids made it onto her seats or out of her windows, I knelt down next to the nauseous girl and quietly notified her of the plan, asking her permission to inform the rest of the bus of the situation. She agreed to the proposal, so I stood up, clapped for everyone's attention, and said, we have someone who needs to throw up, and due to a lack of resources, that vomit is going out the window. I advise everyone behind seat 12 to roll up your windows because if any of you have parents who smoke, you know that what goes out the front window sometimes returns through the back window, and y'all don't want this coming back in on you. As I finished delivering the instructions and as students snapped their windows shut, the crew of goofy boys in the back 4 seats grabbed my attention. Now, these 4 boys were peak middle school boys, just absolute potent mixtures of hormones and a lack of impulse control. Of all the Charlie Browns in the world, they were the Charlie Browniest. One time, while they were on the ground working on their poster board project, one kid pulled his pants down to his knees, exposing his boxer briefs, and he waddled over to his friend who was laying down, sat on his friend's face, and ripped a loud, juicy fart. The friend laying down began rolling around, shouting, "Asshole, you're gonna give me fucking pink eye." And the other 3 damn near hyperventilated, they were giggling so hard. Like I said, peak middle school boys. Back on the bus, the boy with prospective pink eye sat in the very back left seat, and he loudly questioned, "So if we need to throw up, we're supposed to do it out the window?" I hesitantly nodded yes, so the boy thrust the upper half of his body out the bus, looking like Winnie the Pooh stuck in a cave opening, and he began hurling all over Highway 224. This is not good, I thought to myself. His three homies were distraught with glee and giddiness, tossing themselves into their seats with every exhaled laugh, pointing their fingers and smiling like this was all a big jackass skit. That is until the boy sitting in the aisle across from vomiter number 1 commented, "Oh God, I just saw a hot dog." And he became vomiter number 2 across the aisle in the far back right seat. Not long after, the boy in the second to last seat on the left kind of shrugged his shoulders on some, they don't get to have all the fun, and he became vomiter number 3, once again pushing his head out into the open summer air and losing his lunch onto the concrete below. The boy in the second to last seat on the right went from funny to fearful within a matter of moments. I could tell the situation was only enjoyable to him because it was happening to others, and it wouldn't carry the same delight if he were inducted into the spew crew. But we don't always get what we want. And hard as he tried, with deep breaths and hands covering his orifice, there wasn't anything he could do to keep from becoming vomiter number 4. So there we were, a bus full of 8th graders and one hungover adult, watching 4 teenage boys projectile vomit out of their respective windows like they were figureheads to a fancy fountain that spit bile-soaked food and beverage remnants instead of water. At this point, the flip phones unfolded in the vehicles around us and other patrons of the road began recording. Instagram didn't have videos yet, and TikTok or Snapchat either didn't exist or did so in their infant stages, so it's not like this was getting posted on stories or reels, but there was definitely a possibility it could end up on YouTube. "Mr. Dix, do something!" yelled vomiter number 2 as the car behind us filmed the situation like they were witnessing a UFO. "I'm sorry, man, but my face is not going to end up on the internet this way. Nothing I do or say is going to get them to put the phones away. You just got to deal with it." And the boy, in what is ingrained in my head as the most iconic middle school image I've ever seen, squeezed even more of his body through the opening, kept puking, and threw both middle fingers into the air in an act of defiance so pure and visceral I was proud of him. As you can imagine, the rest of the kids were losing their shit. Screams of terror, howls of hilarity, stares of disbelief. Those closest to the vomiters shoved their way to the front so as to create a force field of distance between themselves and the 4 kids having their Sandlot/Stand By Me moment. In an attempt to not be completely useless, I did manage to find some paper towels to bring them so they could clean their lips and nostrils. But remember, I was also pretty hungover still, and venturing into the vomit was a recipe for getting sick myself. It smelled terrible, like the bottom of the grease trap in a butcher's shop. The scent grappled with my olfactory sense and wrestled it into my churning guts. The saliva coalesced at the corners of my mouth, and I thought, here it comes. I stepped to a window in an open seat, and a young boy who had been quiet this entire time frantically shook his head and pleaded, "If you do this, all chaos will break loose. You have to be strong. Mr. Dix, please do not puke out that window." I took heed of the implications, and I miraculously regained my composure as we turned onto the road of our school's address. At this point, 3 of the 4 vomiters slunk into their seats with 1,000-mile gazes, while vomiter number 2 continued his rebellious bird flipping as his unfortunate fountain slowed to a slight dribble. We were the last bus, and when we pulled up, I attempted to explain to everyone that we should let the boys exit first in case they needed to make their way to the bathroom. But as soon as one ran down the aisle, the rest of the occupants shrieked and pressed their way towards the bus driver. But I was by the door, and the door wasn't open, so I got smashed face first into the glass. One boy yelled, "I've got to puke again." The bus driver yelled, "I can't open the door with you on it like that." Another kid yelled, "Let us out." And I yelled, "You have to back up so we can get out." I placed my hands on the door and extended my arms with all my might, sending myself and the students behind me to the ground. In an instant, the door flung open and we tumbled to the concrete like jesters exiting a clown car. The 4 boys sprinted to the bathroom. The rest of the 13 and 14-year-olds found their friends from other buses and detailed the event. And I said to another teacher, "I think I'm going to get fired." Almost certain that my time at this school had come to an end due to gross negligence and endangering the lives and or dignity of my students, I bounced to the bathroom to check on the spew crew. Some of their other homies had joined them, and the group huddled into one open stall, with vomiter number 1 dry heaving into the porcelain god as the rest of his peoples either hugged his waist, massaged his head, or offered words of encouragement. It was actually pretty adorable. With one final lurching belch, vomiter number 1 rose to his feet, threw his arms to the ceiling, and exclaimed, "8th grade!" And the rest of the boys cheered. Meanwhile, the original girl who started the whole conversation, despite all the foul fragrances and graphic displays of upchucking, never once puked. Since then, anytime we've gone to Oaks Park, every 8th grade teacher has gotten their very own roll of trash bags just in case anybody's feeling ill. And nobody is allowed to make Sandlot or Stand By Me jokes.